was a normal day, normal evening. It was like 6, 7 p.m. And I'm walking home from the grocery store in Austin, Texas. And I remember feeling these immense feelings of joy and enthusiasm and gratitude and excitement for my life. And nothing was going on. I didn't have like a hot date that night. Wasn't going to a cool event. Nothing really cool was going on in work. I didn't get any good news, but like these immense emotions of enthusiasm just overtook my whole body. And I felt such an incredible feeling of gratitude. And that's when I had an aha moment, when I realized I'm like, oh my gosh, our natural state as human beings, who we just are at our core, are grateful, loving, enthusiastic beings. And I made the connection. The aha moment was like, oh, I don't have to go become grateful. I don't need to go add love into my life. I just have to remove the blockages within me that are stopping the gratitude from naturally coming out of me.
Thank you from my heart, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you from my heart, from the bottom of my heart.
Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast on www.georgianbenta.com, where you'll hear a new story each week that will inspire more gratitude in your own life. Our mission is to inspire 100,000 people to discover how to feel gratitude and live a happy life through the amazing life stories of our successful guests and their actionable tips. And now, the host of our podcast, Georgian Benta.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Today's guest is an author and CEO and founder of The Daily Shifts, an app designed to help people build healthy habits and find inner peace, featured on ABC News. In his new book, Holy Shit, We're Alive, Doug shows his readers how to live with intention, trust themselves, and show up every day for a meaningful life. And to be honest, I love the name of the book, and it's closely related to gratitude in my opinion. He has a really interesting life story, and I'm really curious on finding out more, and I'm sure that you are as well. Doug, welcome to the Gratitude Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share my story with you guys.
My pleasure. So let us know a little bit more about you. You changed your course in life when you were in your 20s, from the life that you were supposed to live. Like it happened with many of us. We thought that we were supposed to live a certain kind of life, and we chose to live a different one because we saw that it wasn't the best fit for us. And where did that take you?
Yeah, I love the title of your podcast, the Gratitude Podcast, because as you were saying, I was raised in, upper middle class, conservative, white, Mormon Utah. If anyone's never been to Utah, it's a very strong Mormon culture, and you're kind of have this map laid out for you, and your life's kind of planned out for you, and you're supposed to do everything that you're supposed to do. So, it's go to school and get good grades and participate in sports in the community. And then as you turn 19, there's this coming of age ritual where you get served on a Mormon mission. So I don't know if anyone's ever seen them play the Book of Mormon or that, that's kind of it's a pun and it's a spin-off, but like the elders, the missionaries, and then you get called to serve for 2 years, and it's this really big ritual. And then after that, you're supposed to come home and get married and have babies and, finish college and get a good job and buy a house and have a nice car. And, it's everything you're supposed to. And so what I realized was I was kind of following this trend, but I didn't have a lot of gratitude in my life. I wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I was doing what I was told, like I said, but there was a missing piece. And what happened, where my life really started to change, was, after high school for me, there's this time to be prepared to go on your Mormon mission. And there's a level and standard of living standards that you're supposed to abide to before you go, just to keep, stay in purity. And so the months leading up to your service mission, there's no sex, no alcohol, no pornography. Like, it's a very high standard of living to prepare yourself to go on this mission. And before I left, I had the big farewell party, and I said goodbye to everyone, and I had my flight booked, and it was like 2 nights before I was supposed to leave. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and we had slipped up and had broken the rules of the standard. And I was so ashamed, had so much guilt after that experience. I couldn't tell it. I couldn't come clean at that point because I'd already said goodbye to everyone. So I kind of had broken the rules consciously, swept it under the rug, and continued to go on my service mission. And then 9 months into my mission, because when you're out on your mission, there's no TV, there's no music, you're not on the internet, you don't have your smartphone, you don't have, and so it's very focused missionary work. And so the guilt built up with me. And then 9 months into my service mission, I came clean because I felt so bad. And I actually got sent home early, which is a big black mark on you. It's very shameful, and people gossip and talk about you, and you get sent home early. And I remember that was kind of the first time in my life where life hadn't gone according to plan. And I felt like I was kind of the outcast, or kind of took on this role that, my community was mad at me, God was mad at me, and felt like that was kind of the first time in my life where life hadn't gone according to the way I thought it was supposed to go. And was really kind of starting to feel a little bit lost at that point. So that was kind of the first major turning point in my life.
Wow. To be honest, I really didn't know these things, and for me, it's shocking that these things happen nowadays, and that it's so strict. And yeah, oh my God. I can only imagine what you went through and how hard it must have been. But I'm guessing now it might have actually been a blessing. Am I right?
Totally. And for those, it's a very tight knit, the Mormon culture, especially in Utah, it's very, almost everyone where I grew up was Mormon. And so it was kind of like I was in this bubble. I didn't know what it was like kind of outside of the world, really. And you're so consumed by this. And so, when I got sent home early, I felt a lot of, pressure from my community. And while it was difficult, I still wanted to make it right with God and make it right with my community. So I tried to get back onto good behavior so I could go back out and finish. But with, just like you said, it was a blessing in disguise. What was crazy about it was, while I was in that process of trying to, get my standard of living back in the right order to go finish my mission, my life changed dramatically when one day my father called me into the living room and announced that he had stage 4 colon cancer, which is basically a death sentence. And so from that moment on, it basically put my mission on the back burner. And I was able to actually be home at that time and spend, the last quality year, after my dad was diagnosed. He passed away 14 months later. So, but for 12 of those 14 months, he was in pretty good health. And so I was able to really spend the final year of his life with him before he passed. And looking back at it, it was like, I'm so actually extremely grateful for going through that experience of being sent home from my service mission, dishonorably. But I was able to get the last good year with my dad before he passed.
Wow. That's very touching, and yeah, who would have known that this is how it actually was supposed to be? And yeah, you were lucky that you got sent home and you got to spend this time with your father. And yeah, I think it's amazing how
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah, and you could have never predicted that. I think the universe works in mysterious ways. But another thing that's interesting to me is, I'll never forget when, maybe a night or two before he passed away, I remember he had hospice care and he was basically unconscious. And I remember sitting at the base of the stairs by his door the night before he passed, and my mother put her arm around me. And it was late at night, it was almost 12, 1 in the morning, and she put her arm around me, and it was basically like as telling me, hey, this is it, like he's gonna die. And I remember having this an immense wave of emotion and sadness and grief and loss just starting to come and pour up through me. And so I start sobbing uncontrollably, all for about 4 seconds. And then my mind was basically saying, hey, don't cry in front of mom. Don't be weak. Don't, you be the strong, tough guy. And it was just these stories that I've told myself that I need to be strong and weak. So I was never taught how to process my emotions. And so when I cut that emotional release off, right, I just shoved all of the sadness and grief back down inside of me and never dealt with it. Right. I wasn't ever taught how to deal with your emotions. I had to be the strong, tough guy. And so that actually was such a disservice to me, because instead of feeling my emotions, instead of processing my emotions, I was suppressing them, and I suppressed them deep down inside of me and never dealt with them. And when you suppress your emotions, they don't go away, right? They stay inside of you and they fester. And so I started creating kind of this buildup of emotions of shame and guilt of being sent home for my mission, and the embarrassment. Never really dealt with that. Plus the grief and loss of my father, never dealt with that, and shoved that down deeper inside of me. And so I'm starting to build almost like this, I like to use the analogy of like a teapot. You put a teapot on the stove, and the steam starts to boil and boil and boil until the steam comes out. So all of these emotions are starting to boil up inside of me because I just didn't know how to process them. And so this is kind of like the building up of this quarter life crisis I have in my late 20s.
Wow. I think in general, we as men have a challenge with processing our emotions, and to be tough, to be like a rock for other people. We don't know what to do with the emotions, and we just cut them off. And yeah, like you said, it's not the healthiest way to go about it.
Yeah, I remember on that note, after my dad died, my best friend Scotty called me, and he was like, dude, how are you doing? Like, I'm here being an incredible, great friend. Like, what can I do for you? I'm here for you. Let's talk about it. I'm in your corner, being, just a loving friend. And I remember being like, yeah, man, I'm doing pretty good. And I got off the phone with him, and I remember thinking like, I'm not doing good, but I don't know how to communicate that. I didn't even know what to say to him. And I remember being like frozen and being like, deep down inside of me, I'm screaming like, I need help. This is not okay. But I didn't know how to express that and vocalize that. And so once again, just suppressing and pushing down these emotions I didn't want to feel.
Exactly. Wow. Whew, this is incredibly open and vulnerable of you, and I really appreciate that. And I'm sure that many of our listeners either identified with that quite a lot, or they might see men in their lives that tend to do this as well. And yeah, I think it's important that we get to talk about this, because like you said, communicating these things is quite hard, especially in those kinds of situations. And yeah, when we're able to understand that, it's great for us, and it's also great for the other people that are going through this, that we can help them better. And even though it's not that easy to help a person that's not able to ask for help when they actually need it. So yeah, I think that's so powerful. But getting back a little bit to your new book, I think the name is so expressive. And when I'm thinking about the name, it immediately connects me with gratitude, like just the realization that we are alive right now. Like, dude, I'm alive. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Giving a gift that supports someone dear to your heart can be a real blessing. Woohoo You made it very simple for you to offer a memorable gift that your loved one will surely cherish for the rest of their life. Help him or her feel appreciated and valued right now. They might need it more than you think. Go to georgianbenta.com/woohoo or visit the link in the description to find out more.
How did you come up with the name?
The name, that's such a great question, because I didn't feel like I was embodying that mentality. Holy shit, we're alive is such a punch of a title. And really what happened was, after kind of my dad died, I've been sent home from my mission. And really the story that was driving my whole life at that point was when I was in second grade, I was overweight. I was kind of the overweight fat kid growing up. And I was bullied as a kid. And so in second grade, when I don't really have this self-awareness, you're not self-aware when you're 6 years old. And because I was bullied as the fat kid, the internal narrative that I told myself that something was wrong with me. And because I'm fat, something's wrong with me and I don't deserve love. And now I have to go earn and hustle my way into the world and prove to other people why I'm a valuable human. Because obviously you can tell that something's wrong with me because of my physical appearance. So now I have to prove to you. And so that really was the stem of everything I did from second grade. And so it's like, I'm hustling for my worth in elementary school, junior high, and high school to prove to you why you should love me, because I'm the fat kid. I also get sent home from my mission. My dad dies. I don't know how to process my emotions. And so I'm building all of these, I'm putting all of these, in a sense, blockages inside of me that are stopping the natural outpouring of love from expressing itself inside of me. And so I have all of these traumatic experiences, and they're building up and building up, and they're festering, like I was saying. And then in my late 20s, I started my healing journey. And in my early 20s, I ended up making a ton of money in a sales organization. I worked in commission sales. And by the time I was 24, I'd made $1 million. And really the motive behind making the money was that I was so desperately searching a way to find an asset in the world, because I was thinking, okay, I'm the fat kid, my dad's died, right? I don't belong in my community. What's a way to gain respect among my peers and community? And our system, believes that those who make money are seen in a higher status. And so, okay, maybe if I can go make money, then I can show people why I'm lovable and why I have value and worth. And so I went and made a ton of money with recruiting and sales and training and managing, and, made $1 million by the time I was 24. And I'm really just screaming for love, because I didn't feel like I was lovable, because something was wrong with me. And so all of these blockages are being built up inside of me. And then in my late 20s, I start this healing journey where I do everything under the sun. I start working with therapists and psychologists and do sound healings and yoga and meditation. And I do a lot of, spiritual psychedelic journeys working with, compounds like ayahuasca and psilocybin with professional trained shamans. And I traveled the world and went to Bali and did, anything and anything that was some sort of self-healing. And along the journey, I was able to remove some of these blockages that were stopping me from enjoying my life. And as I removed the trauma of my dad dying, as I removed the trauma of feeling like I was the fat kid, as I removed the trauma of not being enough, as I removed these blockages, my natural state of life was love and excitement and enthusiasm and gratitude. And when I felt that rush for the first time after I've healed my stories, my first thought was like, holy shit, this is what it feels like to be alive. This is incredible. I've been so blocked up my whole life, and my natural state is love. And if I can just remove these blockages, being alive and being human feels incredible. And hence, that's why the title of my book is that way, because I believe at our core, our natural human, we all have trauma. We all have had experiences that caused hurt and pain and sorrow and loss. But if we can just remove them, our natural essence, just who we are as our core human being, is we are love, we are joy, we are excitement, we are connection. So we don't have to add those attributes to our lives. We just have to get rid of the things that are blocking those emotions from coming out. Hence, the title of my book.
Wow, that makes so much sense. And yeah, I can totally relate to that feeling of aliveness, and to the realization that we're alive. I think this is very, very closely related to gratitude, because it's like, okay, we're living day by day, but are we really feeling alive? Are we really realizing that we are alive and this is something to be excited about? And yeah, I think this is such a great exclamation, such a great way of expressing that aliveness and that realization. And yeah, by the way, when was the first time that you experienced gratitude? Like, not just the concept, but actually experiencing it as your own, something very personal that made you realize it. Like, it's not just some words, but it's actually something that you live, something palpable for you.
Yeah, I think, a moment that comes to my mind, and that's such a beautiful question, so thank you for asking that. But it was once I realized I had trauma. I never would have guessed I had trauma. I was like this masculine, bro-y kind of like sales guy. And, I always thought therapy or healing was kind of like weird and not up my alley. And then I got to a point in my life when I was 27, I was like, oh, dang, I've got a lot of work to do. I do have a lot of trauma. I was sexually abused as a kid. My dad died. I got sent home from my Mormon mission. I believed I was the fat kid. I had my heart broken. A lot of intense experiences that have happened. And I started to do the healing work, and I committed to it. And it's not easy, and it takes a lot of work. So I got really into having a daily gratitude practice of getting into yoga, meditation, journaling. I was seeing a therapist. I, changed my diet. I changed my sleep patterns. I started exercising more, and, I started reading different books, and it was a process. And, after a long period of time, months and months of consistent work, I remember it was like I was living in Austin, Texas at the time. And I remember I was had created these really beautiful rituals and beautiful habits. And I remember it was like a Wednesday. Nothing special was going on. Like, it was a normal day, normal evening. It was like 6, 7 p.m. And I'm walking home from the grocery store in Austin, Texas. And I remember feeling these immense feelings of joy and enthusiasm and gratitude and excitement for my life. And nothing was going on. I didn't have like a hot date that night. Wasn't going to a cool event. Nothing really cool was going on in work. I didn't get any good news, but like these immense emotions of enthusiasm just overtook my whole body. And I felt such an incredible feeling of gratitude. And that's when I had an aha moment, when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, our natural state as human beings, who we just are at our core, are grateful, loving, enthusiastic beings. And I made the connection. The aha moment was like, oh, I don't have to go become grateful. I don't need to go add love into my life. I just have to remove the blockages within me that are stopping the gratitude from naturally coming out of me. And I realized I had done the work and I had removed those blockages and had that aha moment. I'm like, we can feel this immense, overwhelming love and excitement for life. And we don't have to do anything than get our junk out of the way, and it'll naturally come up. And so it was, like I said, it was a random weekday, 7 p.m., walking up from the grocery store and just feeling fully alive. And I'm like, wow, we can feel like this all the time if we can just do our healing work and clear the junk.
Wow. That's so interesting. It's so similar to my own experience with gratitude and how I started on this journey. And it was very similar in the sense that nothing had happened on the outside, but I experienced an amazing feeling of gratitude, and I felt it in all of my body. And yeah, very interesting how similar that was to what you experienced. And yeah, it's so interesting that nothing changed or nothing had to be outside of us for us to experience that. And I think that's very interesting to ponder about, especially after achieving some things in life. Just one random moment can get you to experience such joy, such excitement.
Yeah. And I realized that a lot of people are trying to solve an internal problem with something external, right? We feel we're broken, we're unhealed, we have trauma. And the way we think that we can heal it is by getting something outside of us. You know, it's the new car, it's the better job, it's finally getting healthy, it's finding the partner. And we think that when that happens, then we'll feel good inside. But the reality is you can't, you need to fix your internal problem by going inward. It's not something you find external. And I was, lucky enough to see the benefits and rewards of doing that work. And what I'm, hoping and my intention with my book is to inspire those to do the same. And I leave tools and techniques and ideas and concepts to really spark a new way of thinking for the reader, so that they too can, look at some of the stuff that may be holding them back from naturally feeling those immense feelings of gratitude and joy in their lives.
Give us some ideas. So what is one thing that we can do to get rid of some of the things that are holding us back from feeling grateful?
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is we need to become aware of the story we're telling ourselves about why we're not happy. And the way we diagnose our story is, one of my favorite quotes, probably my number one favorite quote, is from psychologist and philosopher Carl Jung. And he says, until we make the subconscious conscious, it will guide our life and we'll call it fate. And what he means by that is, everyone I've met, I don't care where you're from in life, that something happened when you were a kid. And it doesn't have to be like this big, crazy, traumatic experience, but something happened when we were between ages of 5 and 14. And we created a worldview about how the world is, when really it was just based off of a single experience that might not be true. And so we have this story that we tell ourselves about how life is or what we need to have happen for everything to be okay in the world. And it guides our whole life. My story was that I was the fat kid. And really, the core root of the fat kid story was that something was wrong with me. And because something's wrong with me, I'm unlovable. And then I went and hustled, for the next 25 years of my life to prove that wrong, to prove to you why I'm lovable. And it was just this constant restlessness. And so the main tool I share in the book is, first we need to diagnose our story. So the question I have for the listeners is, the way you do that is, I always ask, what are you would you be absolutely devastated or frightened or scared if people found out about you? Like, what are you trying to hide from the world? What's the story you tell yourself? Is it that you're too fat, that you're too skinny, that, you're ugly, that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, that you're a fraud, that you're a liar, maybe you have substance abuse issue, whatever it may be. What is the one thing you're trying to hide from the world? And then once you diagnose that, the question I always ask is, like, where did you learn that story about why you're not good enough? Where did you learn it? And really, when you diagnose it, the when and where, it plays back to a specific memory you have where a traumatic experience happened. And then once you kind of diagnose the situation, then you can start to do the healing work. And once you realize that usually the story you're telling yourself has nothing to do with you and it is just a story, then you can start doing the work on it. Because I think the awareness behind it is extremely important, because if you're not aware of your story, like Carl Jung said, unconscious, right? You don't have an opportunity to heal and make a new choice. And so I think just becoming aware of our stories can provide us a lot of insight and a potential breakthrough to stepping into a more natural state of gratitude and love for our lives.
That makes so much sense. And I think a good example of this is seeing someone else's habits, for instance, seeing that they are doing some things on and on, and they might not just not be aware that they're doing those things, and if they would be aware, for instance, they could have a choice and they could do things differently. And I think it's very similar to the things that are going on inside of us as well. We have some habits, not just in the things that we do, but in the emotions that we have, in the way we think, in the story that we tell ourselves. And when we become aware of it, and that's when we can choose to go on a different path. I think that's awesome. And especially in those things that we are most ashamed of, the things that we try to hide, that's where some gems are actually hidden. And I think that's very good. So where can our audience get your book?
It's on Amazon. It's live today. Holy shit, we're alive. And I love hearing personal stories and connecting. So if anyone has any questions or has feedback on the book, you can message me on Instagram at Doug_Cartwright. But like I said, the book is live now on Amazon.
Awesome. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being open and vulnerable with us, and for sharing your story, and for being such a great guest of the Gratitude Podcast. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Gratitude Seeker, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this interview. I really appreciate it. And if you could think of one person that would also benefit from it, share it with them. It might actually be the inspiration that they need to make their day, or maybe even their life, much better. Thank you so much once again. This has been Georgian Benta. Don't forget to keep seeking and spreading gratitude.